Despite the abundance of evidence that comic book fans specifically are not all that interested or intrigued or moved to buy product based on Pride Month initiatives, DC Comics are once again doubling down on it. We're going to get a bigger thing going in 2025. We're going to get variant covers everywhere because who doesn't want a Wonder Woman Pride cover? Who doesn't want a Challengers of the Unknown Pride cover? You know, these are the things that everyone's asking for. Said nobody really ever. You know, I'm sure there are a couple of dozen people that get excited for these initiatives, but they don't really move the needle. And I think putting pride over profit has been something that's been an enormous impediment for Marvel Comics and certainly has been for DC for a few years now. And once you hear the details on it, it's absolutely ridiculous. And we're actually going to get another Golden Age character getting the Pride treatment. They're going trans in 2025 after, I think in 2021, they went non-binary. But hey, who can keep these things straight at this point? The good thing is it's not a particularly important character for most people. There are going to be a couple people out there that are like, oh, wait, that's my favorite character. But most people are going to be like, that's strange. Let's get to these details. DC has announced its plans for the publisher's annual Pride celebration for 2025, including the 5th edition of the DC Pride title, which this year is taking a slightly different approach to previous volumes. DC Pride 2025 is a one-shot featuring work from a host of acclaimed creators. Remember those words, acclaimed creators, including Tim Sheridan, Vita Ayala, Josh Trujillo, Skylar Partridge, A.L. Kaplan, Max Aaron, and more. Where previous editions of the DC Pride series have opted for a traditional anthology format, this year's release will instead tell a singular story arc of interweaving narratives according to DC. Yes, because that's what's been really holding the DC Pride annual back, is that it's not one cohesive story, it's a bunch of short stories, and people just aren't into that. And once we make it cohesive and there's one long, drawn-out story led by Tim Sheridan of all people, this will actually work like gangbusters, and people will really get into it. The acclaimed creators, Tim Sheridan, Vita Ayala, Josh Trujillo, Skylar Partridge, and the only reason anyone knows who Tim Sheridan is because he embarrassed himself going out on social media and be like, we have to show the world that there's more gay people than straight people by supporting by Alan Scott, the Green Lantern book. How did that turn out? There were no sales on that book whatsoever. Vita Ayala is an enormous embarrassment. Basically unhireable on an ongoing or even miniseries from DC or Marvel, but always comes back for the Pride annual. Of course, Vita Ayala likely to be associated with the Marvel Pride annual. Josh Trujillo, I don't know why Josh Trujillo keeps getting work. You probably never even heard of the name. He's the guy that was doing Blue Beetle for like 4 years. I think there was 3 different series of it. Did you even realize we were doing a Blue Beetle anything? No, because Josh Trujillo wrote it. And there just isn't any real talent associated with this other than Skylar Partridge, who I do think is a very talented artist. Don't know about them as a writer, but as an artist, Skylar Partridge has some chops. But there's nobody that gets anyone excited. There are LGBTQ plus IA, whatever the fucking thing is nowadays, inclusive characters or creators that can actually be the headline on that thing and actually move a few units. But I don't think they want their name associated with anything this embarrassing. And this thing is an embarrassment essentially every single year. The culture is changing. People are far less apt to go out there and pretend like they think Pride Month is important. They're far more to just kind of rage against it at this point because we've been so oversaturated with Pride everything for, 5-10 years or something like this, that they're more likely to get mad than anything about this stuff because it does get very, very annoying. Why are you wasting your time publishing a book that literally nobody cares about? And then when you get to the details of what the book is about, it's downright embarrassing. Heroes gather when a Gotham City tavern that has become the center of queer life in the city unexpectedly closes. It's a huge loss to the community, and generations of patrons return to pay respect to a space they've endowed with their entire lifetimes of memories, wishes, and dreams, including Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, reveals DC's press release. Alan returns for one last time to the place he fell for his first love, Johnny Ladd, to touch the wall in which they carved the symbol of their love, to remember the days before everything went to hell for them, and to say goodbye. So the overarching story is that a bunch of characters in DC that are LGBTQIA plus inclusive are going to go back to this bar that nobody has ever talked about or even mentioned in DC history because it's closing down as if it's something important or memorable or something like that, so they can remember how like they fell in love in the bar or something like that. Does that sound intriguing? Does that sound action-packed? Does that story really lend itself to visual storytelling in an action-based medium like comic books? Literally without action, you really can't do anything there? Of course it doesn't. It doesn't even make sense that this is what they're doing. If you really wanted to do a Pride anthology, annual, whatever, to highlight these characters, you could just show that they're badass. Be like, oh yeah, that guy, he happens to be gay too. Oh yeah, that character happens to be non-binary and all that kind of stuff. But they're still completely badass and look at they're saving the day. But none of that stuff is really ever shown. It's just their day-to-day mundane lives as they're BSing and bitching and complaining about how the world treats them poorly or whatever, because people are kind of fed up with this stuff. Does anybody really want to see where Alan Scott and Johnny Ladd had their first date and like etched each other's initials on like a fucking beam in the bar or whatever? That's not fun. That's not even interesting. And I thought we saw where they fell in love. I thought it was on a boat or something. But let's think about this. Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, was a series from Tim Sheridan. He's the headliner on the book. Obviously, the A story is going to be Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, and Johnny Ladd, which was what that book was. And it didn't sell. No one cared. In fact, people rejected it outright, and they fucking hated it. And that's the headline. That's the way that you're going to drive interest in this book? No, it's just another way to embarrass themselves and make DC Comics more irrelevant when actually they have better books than Marvel right now. On the whole, DC has a lot better books than Marvel right now, yet they continuously have stuff like the DC Pride thing, celebrating Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, a failed series, and pushing it to the forefront once again, but throwing in some more Vita Ayala as if that's a seller, or it's the Harley Quinn Fartacular, or the Nothing But Nightwing with the double BUT, like shit. And they consistently just kind of like embarrass themselves when people should be realizing, hey, Green Lantern, pretty darn good book. Hey, Green Lantern, pretty darn good book right now. Absolute Batman, that's a hella fun book right now. Superman, pretty darn solid book right now. Batman and Robin, definitely worth your time in reading. Detective Comics, pretty decent, definitely worth a read. And you actually have a lot of stuff from DC that's worth reading. Aquaman is actually good right now. And then people are going to be sidetracked in basically looking at this and being like, why are we still doing this? This isn't worked out. This hasn't done anything for DC Comics or DC Comics gay, queer, LGBTQ heroes or anything like that. It's never spotlighted them. It just niches them down and makes them more and more irrelevant. You can't really do anything with Alan Scott, the Green Lantern anymore. He's a Pride variant cover character at this point. And it gets even worse. They're taking another Golden Age character and they're changing this now. And when you hear this quote, it's going to blow your minds. Maw creator Jude Ellison Doyle revealed that Blue Snowman, a character originally devised by Wonder Woman creator William Moulton Marston and artist Harry G. Peter, will play a part in the new book, stating, it's such a huge honor to be part of the story DC has been telling and to help Josh Trujillo bring new character Ethan Rivera, along with my own personal soulmate and or best friend, trans icon Blue Snowman, into the universe. When the fuck did Blue Snowman become a trans icon? When the fuck did Blue Snowman become trans? Like, what are you talking about? You can tell the creator, the Maw creator, Jude Ellison Doyle, literally knows nothing about the fucking character. Introduced during the Golden Age of comics, certainly not a trans character. Reconfigured or reimagined, I believe I saw this in, what is it? Infinite Frontier. The thing that Josh Williamson did. Like there was a Wonder Woman, Steve Trevor, Blue Snowman shows up, revealed to be a woman, and then they confront her about it, and then she reveals that she's actually non-binary. I believe is actually what happened. I don't remember it like verbatim or anything because it's been quite a while, but I believe that was the reveal on Blue Snowman. And now all of a sudden, because the character is non-binary in Infinite Frontier, now the character for the Pride Annual is now a trans icon. This is the kind of bullshit that they're lying about. That is an absolute lie about what that character is, what their history is. And it's a slap in the face to William Moulton Marston, whether you like the guy or not. You thought he was too much of a, too much bondage type of stuff in Wonder Woman. I know that's a pervasive argument against the original incarnation of Wonder Woman or whatever. He created these characters. He created something iconic. He created Wonder Woman, and he created, a weird, not very well-known villain called the Blue Snowman. That was certainly never supposed to be non-binary, and certainly was never, as far as I can tell, ever introduced as trans. Like, where does this stuff come from? But they keep doing it over and over. The good thing is now it's not Superman. They're not doing it to a Robin character. They're not doing it to a Blue Beetle. At least they're doing it to Blue fucking Snowman. I think it was Blue Starman last year. Apparently they have a thing for the color blue or whatever. Wonder why that is. I have no idea. But at least they're doing it with like the most fucking obscure characters possible. Trans icon Blue Snowman. These people are fucking ridiculous. They're lying to themselves, and they're hurting DC in the process. And DC, once again, is putting pride over profit instead of concentrating what's actually working. Let's take a break. Let's go out there and get the word out about a book that literally nobody really wants to see, because the creators are terrible. Tim Sheridan, awful. Vita Ayala, awful. Josh Trujillo, probably worse than them, both of them, if that's actually possible. And I do think Josh Trujillo is probably the worst writer out of the three. And that's the talent they got in here. It's just embarrassing. But this is what DC Comics is. This is what they become. And they will always ruin a good thing. They could never keep the momentum up because they're always sidetracked with stupid bullshit instead of actually concentrating on their universe and their fans and what's working and trying to expand upon that. And, it is what it is. Pride over profit every single time. If you appreciate the no-nonsense conversation going on here, because you can't get it very many places, and you would like to support the mission of Thinking Critical YouTube, help us keep the lights on, keep the videos flowing, you do need to come visit us on Thinking Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. There's a button right here. We got lots of different tiers for you to get involved with, support the channel there. You get bonus podcasts, videos, all that kind of stuff. Hope to see you there very, very soon.